Hey everyone, welcome to today's live Q&A. This is an Ask Me Anything style Q&A, and I am attempting to stream on Instagram, YouTube, and 2 Facebook groups. So this is quite an undertaking. But you know what? It is freezing cold outside. There is nothing to do but stay indoors today. And I was like, well, let's hear from you and answer a few questions and just say hi. It's been a while since I've jumped on a live. So just giving you guys all a big shout out if you're watching from your kitchen while you're baking, or if you're like me and it's freezing cold where you are and you're just trying to stay warm. I'm really glad that you decided to join today. So we have a lot of questions. I'm so excited by the questions here. Really good questions that were submitted inside 2 different Facebook groups and here on Instagram. So I posted this morning, Ask Me Anything, and you guys really delivered. Like, we're all over the board with these questions. So this is sort of a home bakery style live Q&A. But when I say anything, I mean anything. And there's some fun questions in here. So, so again, shout out to everyone in wherever you're watching from. Okay, first question in our Ask Me Anything series is what is the difference between different brands of flour? Summer wheat versus winter wheat, high protein versus low protein. So this question came from Barb inside the Bake Better Academy, and it's a really good question. Because unless you are, I'm going to say, unless you either have some kind of like special training or you're a bread baker, you might not know the difference. So the difference between the winter wheat and the other varieties is that winter wheat is higher in protein. And I always knew that just because my background is artisan bread baking. But now that I live in Kansas, I have actually seen the winter wheat growing. And essentially, the lower protein wheat gets planted in the springtime, like when you plant your garden. And then it grows and it matures and it gets harvested in the fall, like traditional, plantings. But the winter wheat gets planted late in the season and it stays dormant during the winter and then it gets harvested in the spring. And because of that growing pattern, it has a higher protein content. So the winter wheat is the one that you want to use for your gluten, the things that you want gluten development in. That would be bread, bagels, pretzels, anything that has yeast in it is what you want to use those higher protein flours for. And if you're a cookie baker or a cake baker, you want much lower protein. The protein is what makes that kind of gluten-y, tough tasting texture. So that's good for bread. Maybe not tough. That's not the best word, but the gluten development is good for bread and not good for cookies and cakes. So try to veer towards those lower protein flours if you're a cake and cookie baker, higher protein flour if you are a bread, bagel, pretzel, that type of baker, yeast user. All right, excellent question. I got a couple from Barb, so you're up top. I'm going to answer all of yours at the same time. By the way, you can drop comments in, and I'll try to circle back and answer any live questions as well. And Barb says, I'm here. Yay, you took a break from baking. Jason's here. Thanks for watching live, guys. All right, next question is which ingredients are most important to stick to for high quality items? Chocolate, flavorings, oils, and which can be skimped on, such as peanut butter and butter. The price of butter is killing me right now. And then someone else, Natalie, chimed in and said, great question. I was wondering the same thing. So if you are feeling the pinch of shopping, I mean, we're all in the same boat. You guys are never going to believe this. I paid $11 for 18 eggs the other day. And I was like, really? $11 for 18 eggs. So here's the long and the short of it. The short part of it is there's a few things that I don't think matter. Sugar, granulated sugar in the United States, it's pretty consistent straight across the board. Other countries have like it's much more granulated, but in the United States, granulated sugar, go for the cheap stuff. The flour, here's the thing about flour. If you are extremely discriminating or a bread baker, you'll probably be able to tell the difference. But if you're not, and you're just making cookies, then I think that you can consider trying out a generic brand. I don't notice flour when I'm using a very generic, like a simple rather than generic, a simple type of recipe. I'll go cheap on flour. But when I'm doing bread baking, I'll at least look for the protein content. I don't just go for the most expensive one on the shelf, but sometimes the General Mills type of labels are okay. Like King Arthur, I can't even afford that right now. Not if you're trying to make any money on it. If you're just baking for yourself and you want to use the expensive stuff. But if you need to mark up for profit, then try going down a notch. Here's where I wouldn't skimp. Powdered sugar, the cheap stuff has a terrible taste to it. It tastes plastic. I hear so many complaints about cheap powdered sugar. So I'd always go good on powdered sugar. And then I feel like brown sugar is really inconsistent too. There's some lower quality brands where the texture is just not right. It's like a really coarse brown sugar, and it doesn't have the kind of the flavor that higher quality brown sugar. So on the basics, that's what I would say. That's the short answer. The long answer is that we really need to be in the habit of continually refreshing our prices. Instead of saying, I'm going to put that off till next year and then I'm going to do this one-time price hike, you really have to get to this fluid place where before every event, every promotion, you're checking in with your prices and just making sure that you're on top of that. I know that's not the answer people like to hear, but if you're using the perfect pricing calculator, it's easy because you update your inventory list and then it updates your prices all throughout your workbook. And you can watch your profit margin go up or down and then say, all right, now we're at the point where I'm not happy being at a 25% profit margin. I have to raise my prices. You enter your new price for butter in your inventory list, it updates it across all your recipes. So that is the long answer. You should be updating them regularly, but all right. So over in the chat, we've got several people having a fun conversation. And somebody says, I have 8 cases of cream. I had 8 cases of cream given to me. So I made butter to put in the freezer. I would love to know how that butter tastes. Yes, that's awesome. But along those lines, go ahead and buy in bulk when you see a good price. When you see something dip down, if you can, if it's an item that you could buy in bulk, do that and freeze it so that you could keep your price at that level, at least for a little while. Okay, so next question is, how do you know when you should hire someone to help you? And this is a really good question because I'm imagining that as you're typing that, you're probably in the weeds right now. And it's like you're either baking and really busy today or you're done, but I know that you've just come out of this crazy season. So and to answer your question about how do you know when you should hire someone, I would start seasonally. So look at your year and your holiday plan and then say, this is a heavy hitter like Valentine's Day and Christmas, and then plan to have some help for those big ones, but don't commit to saying like, you are now my employee and I'm going to give you this many hours. I would really focus on those holidays that are much, much busier and then bring in some help. And you could also consider categorizing your to-do list and give all of that lower skill level type of work that still needs to be done to somebody that you could pay for it. A teenager can fold boxes for you, can sticker, print labels, tie bows, all of that kind of stuff that takes up a lot of your time. Pack orders, things like that. You can bring in help for and just contain it to the season and then ride out the next holiday without help and then move into the next one with help. Which brings me to one of the things I wanted to be sure and talk about today. I have a workshop bundle coming up, and there are 2 workshops that we're going to be doing live. If you're in the Bake Better Academy, these are part of your membership. But if you're not and you just like to benefit from these occasional one-off download PDF type things that you can buy, then these 2 workshops that are coming up are something that might interest you. You can join both at a special rate, which I'll share a little bit more about, but one of them is creating your 2023 plan. And this is going to be a day of planning your year ahead. We're going to talk about choosing your holidays and your promotions, planning your special season, your seasonal specials, creating your 2023 calendar so you know exactly which holidays you're planning on selling for, and then setting goals for your business. So that's workshop number 1. Workshop number 2 is a Valentine's Day planning workshop. And in the Valentine's Day planning workshop, which is going to be in the beginning of January, we're going to be talking about packaging ideas and templates for special packaging, trending products, how to plan your pre-orders, your social media calendar, menu templates, and more. So if you're interested in either one of those workshops, I'm going to drop the link in the chat and you can join the wait list. I just want to warn you, I created that landing page in about 2 seconds before I went live. So it might look like you're getting a download. It's just a wait list. And then I will tag you and send you out some info as soon as I have it. So you could be an early bird and sign up on that wait list. All right. So Valentine's Day is on the back of your mind. Just know that there is a workshop that is available to you if you're interested, where we're going to work out all the details. Okay, next question. Can any sweet roll recipe be an overnight dough? So sweet roll recipes would be things like you would use for a Danish, a cinnamon roll. It's basically a yeasted bread dough with usually egg and fat added. And can anyone be an overnight dough? I would make sure that you're not using an active an instant yeast. A quick rise yeast is sometimes what it's called. So don't use an instant yeast or a quick yeast. Use a regular yeast. And then before you're going to put it in the fridge overnight and make it an overnight dough. Let's see, where's your question? An overnight dough. So I want to just back up and say it does need to go in the fridge to become an overnight dough. And it can be an overnight dough if it doesn't have instant yeast, and it depends on what stage of the process you put it in the refrigerator. So taking cinnamon rolls as an example, you can keep your cinnamon rolls in bulk in the refrigerator, and then the next day finish them off. And it's a great technique to use on cinnamon rolls. But here's the thing. It depends on how proofed they are before you put them in the fridge. So my preference is not to refrigerate or overnight the big ball of dough, the whole batch in a bowl. I wouldn't do it that way. I would go ahead and roll them out and shape them and then put them in the fridge. So the next morning, you're just proofing, you're letting them come to room temperature, proofing a little bit and baking. But just know that when you refrigerate yeasted products, it slows down the yeast activity. So you're going to have to give it more time to rise once it comes out of the refrigerator. And then also the longer it stays in the refrigerator, the less active it is. So it is a great technique. If you need fresh cinnamon rolls first thing in the morning, then you can just take them out, warm them, and bake them instead of doing all that work. There's a little bit more that goes into it, but I hope that answers your question. All right, our chat is active, and I love that. And Chef Jason says, and if you're not a student in the Bake Better Academy, what you waiting for? Yes, I love it. That's so true. We are big things happening in the Bake Better Academy in 2023 for sure. All right, and you're welcome on that. All right, so next, how important is it to use a scale when baking? And there was a good conversation about this below the question. So it it is important to use a scale when you're baking. It's more important on certain ingredients. Things that can get compacted are important to weigh out. If you need an egg, you need an egg. You don't really have to weigh it. If you need a quarter of a pound of butter, you can unwrap one stick of butter and you're fine. Sugar is pretty much 1 cup, 8 ounces or whatever the conversion is there. Like it's almost always accurate, but flour is never accurate. And brown sugar is another one that can really be different depending on who measures it. So if you only measure one thing, if you only weigh one thing, weigh your flour. That's the one that's going to make the biggest difference in your recipe. It's more about the consistency of your baking. If you're finding your baking is inconsistent, sometimes it spreads, sometimes it doesn't, things like that, then you might want to consider weighing your flour. Okay, next question. Let's see. How can I be better organized with my recipes? And then this question's from Barb, and she's on Pinterest a lot. She said I'm all over the place. So I love Pinterest. I'm all over the place on Pinterest too because it's a black hole. If you guys like Pinterest, definitely follow me over there. Pinterest is my baby. That's where I started my entire journey. So you'll see a lot from me on Pinterest because there's years of work over there, but lots of great resources. So one thing I would suggest, Barb and whoever else loves to look at Pinterest for recipes, is to create a board for yourself that is recipes that I want to try. So, you might just be pinning everything. I want to try all of this, but the ones you want to try, put in one album, like recipes to try for my home bakery, be more specific. And then what I do is I go into my board that I want to try, and then you open up the pin and you go over to that blogger's website. And then once you're on their website, this is where I use my Evernote extension, and that will clip that page and save it in your Evernote. So Evernote is really great at bookmarking pages, and then you don't have to go back into Pinterest and try to remember each one. This is like your next level. I am definitely trying this one. That's when I stick it in my Evernote web clipper under the category of recipes that I'm going to try. So I'm sort of weeding them out and kind of these are next up on deck. So step one, create your own Pinterest album of things you want to try, Pinterest board of things you want to try. And then two, put it in Evernote. All right. Let's see. Next up, this is a really good one. Okay. Is there an application that works with WooCommerce and Square? And I think this one came from Amber, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, WooCommerce and Square, if you're not familiar with WooCommerce, this is like a plugin that you would use on your website. So if you have a website where you can somebody said your hair is lovely. Thank you. It doesn't say your username, but that's so sweet. Thank you. So WooCommerce is a plugin that goes on your website. And this is like, so you can make a transaction on the website, order my cookies, click here, and then you're right within the website, you're paying for it. And then you get the notification in that somebody just ordered something. So WooCommerce is a plugin and it makes your website like an e-commerce platform. So that's what WooCommerce is. And then she says, or Square. So she's looking for an accounting application. My guess is that your online purchases are going through WooCommerce, and then Square is everything else that's not a website purchase. So it's all your pre-orders, your in-person orders, all that kind of stuff. And so those two places are where you take money, and now you're trying to figure out how to do your bookkeeping accordingly? Which is a great question. So that might apply to other people who have a website and use Square, or even if you only have one of those, what's the best bookkeeping app to use in combination? And for that, I recommend Wave, WAVE. It's a free bookkeeping app, and we've done multiple trainings on it inside the Bake Better Academy. But in a nutshell, it will import your information from where your transactions take place and then bring it into a bookkeeping program. And it's free. How great is that? So there's a couple things I need to tell you about that, though. It does work with WooCommerce. It doesn't connect to Square. But the workaround there could be that if you take all of your payments out of Square and automatically transfer them to a dedicated checking account that is only for your baking, then you can connect that checking account to Wave. And so you will have it bringing in all of these transactions. And then at the end of the month or periodically throughout the month, you'll go into your Wave software and start to do your bookkeeping. You're going to say, this is a sale, this is a purchase, this was ingredients, and these are sales that I made. And you'll start to categorize all these transactions throughout the month so that at the end of the month, you have a really good picture of how much you made and how much you spent. So Square doesn't connect directly, but if you take your Square money out of a bank account, then your bank account connects directly. So I hope that helps. And I love Wave. I've done tons of training on it, like I said, but let me know if you have any questions about Wave. I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. Okay, so Miss Julie asks, what do I use to set up a landing page if I don't have a website? And I needed to get a little bit more clarification from her on that, because I felt like there's a little bit more that we need to know in order to answer that. So if you don't know, a landing page is like a one-page website. So that link that I shared to go sign up for my workshop bundle, the only thing you can do on there is opt in. You're basically going to say, yes, I want to be on the list. That is a landing page. It's the only thing that it does. It's like one page of a website. So then when I asked Julie, how do you want to use this landing page? Because that has something to do with what I would recommend. She said, I want to set up a way to collect emails and send newsletters and flyers. So Julie, I wouldn't recommend a landing page for that. If you want to collect email addresses, what I recommend is using an email marketing platform. Now, there's several of them out there. You've probably heard of them. There's MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, and you don't have to know anything about email marketing to use them. My preference is ConvertKit. I use ConvertKit for all the emails that you get. If you're on my email list and you get an email from me once a week on Wednesdays, and I'm talking about something like 3 tips to do better to improve your Instagram bio, that was this week's email, that comes through ConvertKit. So the thing that you want to be really careful about when you're sending out email newsletters is there are some laws about how you need to be able to offer people an opt out or an unsubscribe. So if you see your inbox, if you look at the bottom of every email, I'm sure you guys do this, you unsubscribe to stuff you don't want to read. Well, you have to offer that when you send people information. So if you're thinking of creating an email list for your business this year, it's a great idea. I highly recommend it, but you have to be careful about the way you do it because you have to give people the option to opt out. So just going and writing a newsletter and then sending it from your own Gmail, it's not a good strategy. You can do it occasionally, but it's not a good strategy to build a business on. So what you do want to do is use one of these email marketing platforms that meets all of the qualifications to legally send emails to people. So the one I love and recommend is called ConvertKit, and it's free. That's the best part. It's free. So I'm going to drop a link for Julie or anybody else who's interested in learning more about ConvertKit. This link right here is part of my affiliate program. So you do get, what is the bonus here? You can get it here in the link, or you could also go to my website and look at my resources program. But if you do it through there, you do get a free startup kit. And until you have, I think, 1,000 people on your email list, it's completely free. That's why I love it. Plus, it's really easy to use. So inside ConvertKit, you can do things like create a little landing page. If, for example, if you wanted to do something that said, let's see, what did you say you wanted to do? Sorry, let me double check your question. You said, I'm trying to set up a way to collect emails, send newsletters, flyers, and such. So ConvertKit can help you do all of that. And if you wanted to do a special, anything where, you're doing a cooking class or you're selling a recipe, you can also do that inside ConvertKit. They're really designed for creators. It's designed for creators, and it helps you to sell right inside the platform. So a great way to collect emails, a great way to send emails, and a great way to monetize a little bit if you are at that level. So the link is in the chat if you're watching on Facebook, but if you're on Instagram or YouTube, then you can go to my website, betterbakerclub.com / or just go up to the menu and click on resources, and you'll see the link for that. Great questions, you guys. All right. The next question is, to my fellow bakers, do you find yourself critiquing other people's baked goods and comparing them to yours? And lots of comments after that question as well. So that tells me that this is a hot topic. So it's such a good question. Do you find yourself critiquing other people's bakes and comparing them to yours? Yes. Guilty as charged. And I think it's healthy. So here's a couple things that I want to say about it. Number one, it is really important to play your own game, run your own race, and not compare yourself to other people, because comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison will absolutely take away all of the fun and pleasure that goes into this. So it's really important to do you. You don't have to make cinnamon rolls the same way anybody else makes cinnamon rolls. You could do it completely weird and different, and people may love that. And you look at other people's cinnamon rolls and you're like, oh, is that how you're supposed to do it? Like, I watched a reel today on Instagram, and somebody was like rolling their cinnamon rolls in the strangest way. And I was like, I've never seen that done before. It was like individual strips and then rolling each strip. That's cool. You do you, and I'll do me. I do mine a little bit differently. I don't do the string thing. Like, everybody does things differently. So I don't feel like you should compare as a way of saying, this is the way I'm supposed to do it, and I've been doing it wrong the whole time. But I do feel like comparison has its place. So first, run your own race, do your own thing, and find the people who love what you do exactly for the way that you do it. Doesn't mean you can't get better, but it means that you don't have to be like everybody else. In fact, the less that you are like everyone else, I think the better you stand a chance of being noticed and standing out in your field. Now, here's where I would look at what other people are doing as a strategy, because being competitive is about knowing what other people are doing. So anytime throughout my career that I have stopped to see, I wonder what they charge for their products, or I wonder what their signs look like at the booth down the way from me, I always come up with a new idea, not a copycat idea, but I look at it and go, I could do that. I could do it differently, and I can do it my own way. And then sometimes I get inspiration from looking at other people. So I feel like that is the healthy way to notice what your competition is doing, but it's not really comparing. So compare in a healthy way, compare in a way that inspires your creativity, and compare in a way that gives you more confidence in yourself, not in a way that makes you feel bad about yourself or feeling negative. If you walk away feeling negative, then I would tell yourself that that's not a healthy activity. Looking at what other people are doing is making you feel bad. Okay, great question. Let me see if we have any questions in the chat. Lots of hellos and wonderful feedback. You guys are the best. I love it. All right. Now, I had another question and an announcement. So, a while ago, a member of the Bake Better Academy asked me, like, how did you meet your husband? Because she noticed that in my Facebook posts that we look like we're still in love. And I thought that was so funny. And the reason I was going to bring this up is because in 11 days, I'm leaving the country to travel with my husband to live in the UK for 4 months. And if I could show you where we're living, you would literally like not believe me. It is a castle. And so I thought, I'll tell you the story of how I met him once I tell you why we're leaving the country. So my husband is a college professor, and he's going to be teaching abroad at a university full of exchange students in like an hour outside of London. And that is, it looks like Downton Abbey. It's like a castle. And I am going to be traveling along with it. Somebody said it's a beautiful castle. It absolutely is. So I'm going to be traveling along with him, living in this beautiful castle with 179 college students, and figuring out a fun way to incorporate baking and talking about baking while living in the UK. No, the answer to how did I meet him, you guys, we met on Match. We met on Match.com 6 years ago. And here's the funny part of the story. I actually wasn't on Match. I had been on Match. I went to stalk somebody. I thought somebody that I knew was on Match again. So I went online to see if he was there and accidentally reactivated an account. And there was this email. And I was like, oh, I don't want to leave an email without a response. So it was an email from my husband, and it was actually about travel. And so I was like, let me reply to this. And it was just kind of random that I had gone on and stalked this other person, saw this email waiting, replied to it. And yeah, that was 6 years ago. 5 years ago, and we've been married for 2 years, and now we're traveling out of the country to this fabulous location where baking will happen. And I will be sharing that with you guys on either in the lives. You might see these exotic locations or by sharing like English pastries and baked goods. So I'm really excited to bring a little bit of English baking to my repertoire, because that is not something that I've done very much of aside from watching Great British Bake Off and learning what a Bakewell tart is. I'm going to be a newbie over there. How fun is that? So, so that is the question to how did you meet? We met on Match. And it's really sweet. For our anniversary, he printed out all of the emails that we exchanged because we talked for a long time. And we have this really cute book of our entire getting to know you, because it was all virtual. So it was a really fun way to meet. All right, so we're over 30 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for such great questions. I love that you just threw whatever was on your mind in the chat. If there's something that you want to know more about, shoot me an email, and we will figure out a way that we can work together and get you your questions answered. And then those announcements that I made are to sign up for the wait list. If you want to be involved in the workshop with the 2023 planning and the Valentine's Day package workshop, The link to sign up is in the chat here. I'll put it in the description of these videos once they get archived, so you can also scroll up if you're watching on replay. And then if you're looking for any of the resources like ConvertKit and getting that free up to 1,000 subscribers offer, that's on my website, betterbakerclub.com. Just click on the resources link. All right, I want you guys all for joining today in this fun Ask Me Anything style Q&A. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone in the chat. So great to see you again. And we will talk to you very soon. Bye, everyone.